Hi, it's Keith Smith, Falmouth Outlook, continuing our series as we get into the political season, wanting to make sure that our readers and our viewers are as informed as possibly can. We have the video with Billy Matthews, and we had mentioned that we would have an accompanying video with Roger McKinney. Now, is the official title Chairperson of the Pendleton County
Yes,
Democratic Committee?
That's right, Chairman.
Chairman, and he's been involved for a long time. Actually worked for the Outlook. For how
Yes,
long
sir.
did you work here for the Outlook?
15 years.
15 years, writing a lot of stories. Most of you all probably watching this remember reading a lot of his information. So a face that most Pendleton County people well know. And we're just going to sit down and look to have a talk about what's going on with the Democrat Party, both at all levels, and what can we expect over the next couple months as we lead into the November 6th general election. Just a really simple question. How did you become a Democrat?
Well, I was born into it. I'm the son of a coal miner and the grandson of a coal miner. They were both Democrats. They were, of course, pro-union. And so we always understood that the Democrats were for poor people, Republicans usually for rich people and business people, and so that's the way it started. I was born into it. My family's all Democrats.
Well, let's actually kind of explore that a little bit, because some of the viewers may not know, when you talk about coal miners and unions, there's a lot of historical importance in the state of Kentucky and the eastern Kentucky. My grandfather was a coal miner, had black lung, and eventually passed on from this. So I've heard a lot of stories about the coal mining days and the unions and those kind of things. What is the history there between the unions, coal mining, Democrat Party? Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Well, I guess maybe around 1900s, there was coal companies came into eastern Kentucky and they bought up their property rights, and sometimes like 10 cents an acre, and then so later on they came in and began working the coal, and then they set up coal camps, and where you had the company stores and you had scrip, and because miners were working at such a low wage, they formed unions, and then the unions raised their wages, you know, and provided health care and that type of thing. And there was a lot of strikes, and sometimes there was violence and that type of thing.
I remember my grandfather, and correct me if this story is wrong, but he was talking about, you mentioned the company stores and the script. For those of you who may not know, from what the stories my grandfather told me, is that they would actually, the coal companies would pay in company script, not in the US dollar. So you couldn't take your wages and go spend it somewhere else. The only place you could spend that company script was in the company store. So anything they paid to their workers, they knew that they were going to get right back, because you could only spend it in the company store. And that was one of the things that the strikes and the Democrat Party back in the early 1900s really hugely beneficial for the coal miners of Kentucky.
Yeah, one time I remember my father, in the beginning they had carbide lights that they had on their caps, and there was no electricity in the mines, and they used ponies to pull the carts, that type of thing. And then later on they had shuttle buggies when they were electric. And the coal was like, I don't know, maybe 3-4 foot, and they had to crawl around inside, and they had to get on their knees and load the coal, and so it's probably cramped.
I don't think a lot of people really understand what a coal job is. My uncle still works for, I don't know what the company's name is now, but that tests coal. And he's told me stories of 400 or 500 yards underground, and him crawling on his belly in a little area that may be 2 feet high to get to the point where he could test the coal. And I don't think I could, well, one, I don't think I could fit through a 2 foot But just that far underneath ground and crawling on your belly to get to, that's just an amazing job.
And it was always about 50 degrees back in the mines.
Yeah.
If it's sub-zero outside or if it's over 100 degrees, it stayed 50 degrees in there.
Yeah.
But,
And would you agree that that's really when the Democrat Party really became I don't want to use the word power in Kentucky, but that's really when they established their strong identity with unions, with the workers, because of what was going on in eastern Kentucky with the coal mines and the strikes that they organized.
Yeah.
And my mama would tell stories that my grandfather would leave and she would not know if he was coming home or not because they were going to strike or they were going to do something. And I mean, it wasn't a peaceful, hold your signs up, better conditions. It was a dangerous time.
and they would strike maybe 6 months, we'll work for 6 months, and then they get a 10-cent on the dollar raise, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, okay. From that, and you know, it's really interesting because I hear a lot of people, whatever party they is, it's a lot of it is generational and it is what your family has done previously. But from you being a Democrat, how have you gotten involved into the leadership of the Democrat Party?
well, that all began, I guess, when I began working for the Outlook. I covered fiscal court and city council meetings, and so became just observing local politics and writing stories about it. And about, 2015, I was a member of the executive committee during the time I worked for the paper, maybe a year or two like that. At the end, 2013, 2014. In 2012, the executive committee disbanded for 3 years, from 2012 to 2015, and we decided we started up again, so I was elected chairman and we chose officers and started up from there. But it was like, 2015 is when it disappeared from 2012 to 2015. And then we started it up again, and that's how I became the chairman.
Okay. Well, I got to do the follow-up question of what was the reasoning for the disbandment?
Well, the membership just got so small that, and one of the problems was there wasn't any money and nobody wanted to do anything. There was a lack of interest there.
As far as being athletic director and being involved in schools, I understand that. It's always a large group of people that wants things done, but there's only a small group of people that's willing to do the work that the large group wants. And that's probably what you were experiencing. Yeah.
So I think there's 120 counties in Kentucky, and maybe about 10 or 11 of those counties have no executive committee at all.
So who all is on the executive committee right now here in Pendleton County?
Well, as far as the officers, I'm the chairman, and then Christine Rudolph is the vice chair, and she's retired. She's a retired ethics professor from Xavier, and she was an ethics professor in Florida. So
that's an interesting. How in the world do you end up in Pendleton County from Florida to Xavier to Pendleton County? That'd be an interesting story.
Yeah. Well, they retired. She and her husband Frank, he's a lawyer, and they were both retired, and they moved to Pendleton County to build their dream house.
Oh, okay.
So they live in Flower Creek with Butler.
So besides Christine, who else is involved?
Well, Carolyn McGlasson is the treasurer, and she's been on an executive committee for a long, long time, and maybe 10, 15, 20 years, something like that, but for a while. And Mary Saylor from Butler, she's the secretary.
Okay.
So there's 10 of us. There's 10 of us all together, and so to have a meeting, 4 people is a quorum.
Oh, okay.
as long-
So when do you meet? Like if somebody wanted to come to the meetings, is it open to the public? When do you
Yes.
meet? Where? All those kind of things?
It's, we have a meeting every month, and we hold that meeting at the library on the third Thursday of every month at 6 p.m. in the assembly room there at the library. So everyone's welcome, who's in the public's welcome to attend.
So if somebody wanted to come up to your meeting, what would a normal meeting be like? I mean, what would they kind of expect when they come into the meeting?
Well, that we have an agenda, a
Mhm.
written agenda, and we go, and we open up the meeting, we approve the minutes from the last meeting, we have a treasurer's report, and then if we have some old business to take care of, we do that. We talk about what we've been doing and any new things that we're planning,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
And then of course we adjourn. Usually the meeting's lasted about an hour and a half.
Okay. All right. So you just basically like we're doing here, you all just sit down and have a conversation about what's going on and,
Yeah.
and politics and what you all kind of feel like what role you all need to take locally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's look at the national and state level. Where do you think the Democrats stand? You know, kind of the last few years have been a little bit hard on the Democrats with the loss of all three parties kind of at both the state and the federal level.
Yeah.
But so where do you see federally and state the Democrat Party standing right now?
Well, federally, of course, the Democrats don't have the House. They need to, I think, to get 23 seats in order to get control of the House again. They're expected to get 44 seats or more. The Senate is another story. I think they would need to get maybe 6 or 7 seats. They're expected to maybe lose 4 seats. I'm
Really?
not sure. Yeah, possibly lose 4. Although they could gain control of the Senate too. But so they're in the executive branch. That's they of course expect to gain control of the executive branch in 2020. But what's happening in the executive branch and with the Republican Party is really interesting. Well, currently, President Trump is being investigated for
Talking about the Russian collusion, what Mueller is doing, his investigation, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, he's been investigated for possible collusion or conspiracy with the Russian suspected conspiracy. Now I think he's been investigated for interfering with the finance campaign laws. And
Yeah, the last couple of days, there's been a lot of things coming out, and to see where it plays out and everything will be interesting. I think that election surprised everybody. I went to bed last night, and Billy Matthews said when he went to bed that night, he thought Hillary Clinton would be president. And I did too. I thought Hillary Clinton would be president, and I told him yesterday, and I'll say the same thing here, my wife was saying, no, Trump's going to win. And I said, I don't see how Trump's winning. I think Hillary will be president. And by golly, I woke up the next morning and
yeah,
I hate to say this publicly and on record, but my wife was right. And it was a shocker to many people that did not see that coming.
yeah, it was really shocking. There's so many things that I think he lost, or she lost the election in 3 states with 78,000 votes spread over 3 states. And then there was the problem with the Russians hacking into the DNC and all the emails. And yeah, it's really, really involved. And,
One of the things I read at that time, looking back at it after the fact, it seemed like her husband Bill was the one that realized that there was danger, and he was proposing a certain strategy to go to Wisconsin, Michigan, and start concentrating on those. And the guy who was probably in my lifetime, because I'm after JFK, the most popular Democrat of all time, they didn't listen to him when he was, you know, a winner. I mean, he won elections, easily won elections, not easily I won't say, but I mean, he knew how to win elections. And looking back at it later, it seemed like he knew the winning path, and for whatever reason, they chose to not listen to one of the most successful politicians there. Well, let's move on to the state level. State level's kind of been the same thing. Historically, the Republicans took control of the House, what was it, 2 years ago? Both chambers of the legislation controlled by the Republican, a Republican governor. As I mentioned yesterday to Billy, Kentucky's in a unique situation where it's similar federal and state because it's controlled by the Republicans, and we have a governor and a president that go on social media and just acts like idiots, making comments that are not appropriate, and just doesn't help with what they do. So we're in a unique situation that we, in our political world, we have the same life at both state and federal level. What do you expect this fall from the state level? I mean, it was a very contentious General Assembly this past year, very emotional with all the teachers' pension stuff. So kind of what do you see going on at the state level?
well, at the state level, I think that the whole thing can turn around. You know, they can take back the House, they can take back the Senate, and possibly because of what's going on in Washington, will bring more people out to vote. And traditionally, well, there's more registered Democrats in the state, just like in Pendleton County, there's more registered Democrats than there are Republican. So if you could just get the vote out, the whole thing could turn around.
Yeah.
And but
Allison Grimes, I think it was Allison Grimes' office, released some information, I'd say June, something like that, in which she said for the first time in decades, the Democrat Party registered voters dropped below 50%, which was shocking more than anything because Kentucky has been seen so much as that. Any thoughts on what you can attribute to her releasing those numbers, that it's fallen below 50%?
the registration.
Yeah, the number of registered voters, if you look at the statewide, and what percentage was Democrat, her office released that it fell below 50% for the first time. I mean, it's always been 50% of the voters were always Democrat. It's been like that my whole life. I'm 53, and now it's not. Just wondered, any thoughts on why that number's occurring? I don't know.
Lack of interest, I guess, the same thing, that people are not involved politically. And you look at the voter histories are records of the people voting in the counties, and some people are, well, they're registered, they haven't voted in 10 years. They haven't cast a vote in 10 years. They're on rolls, but they're just not voting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like 13% of the voters turn out.
And that's embarrassing, that people just don't go vote.
Yeah, they do not vote. I think in primary it was like 56% or something in Pendleton County.
Yeah.
That's pretty high. But it's been as low, I think, as 9%.
That's amazing. Yeah. But by golly, I bet you it's more than 9% who complain and gripe about the government.
Yeah, that's right.
But not vote. Well, one of the good news for the Democrat Party is back a year ago, I wrote an article for the paper through my In the Hammock that historically I went back and looked all the way back to Warren Harding, and there were only 2 instances that the president's party, didn't matter whether it was Republican or Democrat, there were only 2 times that the president's party did not lose seats in either the House or the Senate. That, you know, some of the greatest names in each party's history, JFK couldn't hold all the seats in that midterm election of his first term. Ronald Reagan couldn't hold the seats. Obama didn't. George Bush didn't. Bill Clinton did. He was one of them. Even Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which shocked me. They're in the middle of a war. He has been president for 4 terms, and he couldn't hold seats. So obviously, he was well beloved. They elected him for 4 terms, but then he couldn't. So historically, you would expect the Democrats to pick up seats in both of them, because that's what we generally do. So what do you think it is about voters that we just become fickle after we elect a president for 2 years later? We're ready to go to another party.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the Democrats are not good about off-year elections. They turn out for presidential elections, but the middle elections are not real good about turnout, not like the Republicans. And I think the whole state turned out for Trump for this last presidential election, and Pendleton County turned out. So I forgot how much of the vote he got, maybe 70% of it, something like that.
In Pendleton County?
I think so, yeah, I think so. So,
I don't know what it was, but he did something that inspired people. I don't want to use the word inspired, but had people vote. And like I said earlier, it surprised me. I expected Hillary to be president when I went to sleep that Monday night, and was very surprised. Well, so like I said, historically, kind of really expect Democrats to be able to make some headway this election, because that's generally what this country does. But it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. We talked about the General Assembly, so let's move on to locally. One of the questions I'm always intrigued by is when you talk about federal and even state politics, there's certain issues that really separate the parties, whatever, you know, immigration, abortion, whatever the issue is. And you can really see those issues at the federal level, less at the state level, but there's still some differences you can see. How does that play out at the local level? Is there a huge difference on candidates at the local level like there is at the federal level?
in regard to the wedge issues like
Well,
abortion
in regards to the party, like a Democrat local candidate and a Republican local candidate, the wedge issues.
Yeah.
Are there wedge issues at a local level that really separates the parties?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. It's mostly at a federal or state, and abortion's a big thing. It's a big thing with the Republicans. You know, the Republicans are pro-life, and the Democrats are pro-choice, but that turns into being pro-choice. The Republicans turn that into being baby killers, one killing more babies, which is ridiculous. And then the gay rights thing. The Republicans are for family values, and that involves the evangelicals. Well, both in abortion and it involves religion. So they take up the mantle of being. I think they base it on biblical foundation for the wage issues.
But locally, what are there, well, I guess, I don't want to say what are they, because that would be assuming, are there issues that locally there's a big difference between a Democrat and a Republican?
Well, the big issue now, of course, is teachers' retirement and pensions, and the public schools, public education, and the charter schools.
Gotcha.
So that's a big thing in Pendleton County.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about Pendleton County as we go into this. let's talk about the local slate of choices that the voters will have coming into the November 6th election. Who are the Democrats? Let's look at the federal level first. You've got Seth Hall, won the primary over Chris Lord and Patty Pyatt.
Yeah.
We had the three of them in and interviewed and sat here and talked to Seth Hall one night for, I don't know, 45, 50 minutes. Tell us a little bit about Seth Hall that'll be taking on Thomas Massey in the House of Representatives seats.
Seth is from Oldham County, and which is down near Louisville. And he has been involved in the executive committee for a long time there, and he has to deal with 20 counties. He has to campaign in 20 counties from all the way from Greenock County all the way to Jefferson County. So that's going to be difficult for him, but he's very active on social media, and Christina Lord now is part of his campaign.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, she is. So she.
Because she was down from that area also, wasn't she? Very
Trimble.
close to
She's
Trimble
from
County.
Trimble
They
County.
border each other, those two
Yeah.
counties, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were, and of course Patty was from Campbell County.
Yeah.
But so Massey, I think he's been in for 3 terms, something like that. Yeah.
I really don't know.
He was the judge executive from Lewis County. He was maybe judge exec for like a year in Lewis County, and then he ran. That seat, I believe, let's see, that seat was
Was that Jeff Davis
Jeff
and
Davis.
Ken Lucas and
Jeff Davis.
and Ken Lucas before him was that seat, wasn't he? He was a Democrat from, because I remember voting for Ken Lucas.
Ken Lucas, a Democrat.
Back in the late 90s, I believe
Yeah,
it was.
and that district is a Republican district. It's Ken Lucas was a blue dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
He caucused with the Republicans. And
Do you want to explain to some of the people, that, especially some of the young viewers, because I don't think that term's used much anymore in the media at all, blue dog, but what was a blue dog Democrat?
a blue dog Democrat was, they were registered Democrat, but they tend to be a conservative Democrat and be closer to the Republicans than in Pendleton County. I would say a good deal of Pendleton County is blue dog Democrats. They're conservative Democrats.
And I think fairly that's probably what you would describe me as a conservative Democrat. Just like you, just like most people you talk to, you usually register what your family registers. And in my family, we're all Democrats, and you know that's what we do. And what I joke with my mom and dad, they have times they don't even know who's running for the race. They go in there and they press that straight Democrat Party ticket and have no clue who they're voting for, but it's got a D after their name, and that's who they're voting for.
Ken Lucas, I think, before Ken Lucas, Gene Snyder.
Oh, okay, yeah. With the airport.
With the
That's where. Now, was he a Republican or a Democrat? I don't remember. I know that was in high school.
I think he might have been a Republican. I won't promise you. I'm not sure of that.
I don't remember either.
But, yeah.
So what are some things that Seth Hall, and we hope to have him back in as we get closer to the election and talk to him, but what's some of the things that he's campaigning on that if you elect Seth Hall to go to DC, things that you would expect Seth Hall to be doing for the voters of this area?
Well, he's for he's for economic development. He's for improving the infrastructure. There's two of the things, and of course he's for teachers and for teachers. But
All right, well, at the state level, we've got two races to vote on. Man, it's hard on those House races. I didn't realize until I started doing this, it's every 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, golly, it's like they're always campaigning.
Every other year they're out there campaigning.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard job. No matter who gets it, that's a hard job. They constantly have to be out there campaigning. So you got Greg Colson, who is an in-law, like you have mentioned about focusing on teachers and teachers' pension being a huge issue. He has, his in-laws were both teachers. You have him running against Mark Hart, who has a wife and a sister that's a public school teacher. Tell us a little bit about Greg Colson. He's from Harrison County, so some of the people from Pendleton County may not know him.
Well, Greg is a lawyer in Harrison County, and he had just recently moved there, and he has he's bought a house in Harrison. He's opened a headquarters there next door to his house that he's sharing with Amy McGrath.
Okay.
Which is.
And she's running for a House seat for DC out of the Lexington district, right?
District 6, I think, is
Yeah.
against Andy Barr.
Gotcha. Now, that is not an election with Amy McGrath that we'll be voting in for. We will be voting for Thomas Massey or Seth Hall, that race, compared to her race with, did you say Andy Barr?
Yeah.
Andy Barr,
Yeah. So she's running. But,
and I think in talking with Greg, he's originally from Grant County?
yeah, that's right. I
Yeah.
think he graduated from Williamstown
Okay.
High School. But, so he's was unopposed in the primary. He didn't have any primary opponents.
And then the other race is the Senate race. Will Schroeder is the incumbent. Rachel Roberts, who I believe is from Northern Kentucky,
Newport.
is running against him for that election. Now they're unlike the House, if I believe, where the House is every 2 years. The Senate's every 4 years, right?
Every 4 years.
Yeah. So he's been in for 4 years. Look,
Yeah.
is this his second term, or had he been in there beforehand?
I think this will be his second term.
Okay. Well, tell us about Rachel Roberts. Tell us who she is and what her positions are.
Well, she's, of course, from Newport. She's for protecting public education. She's for restoring EPA regulations, improved infrastructure, economic development, preventing drug abuse, or she wants to do something about the opioid epidemic. She will be in Pendleton County. The retired teachers, and
Okay.
the teachers are having
Next Wednesday.
next,
I think
on the 5th at 12.
Yeah. Or 2 Wednesdays, 2 weeks.
Is it to
Yeah,
the 5th of
because
September?
we'll have the 29th.
5th of September.
Yeah, 5th of September, yeah.
Yeah, and that's at 12, and well, Greg's gonna be there, Greg Colson, and Will's gonna be there,
And I'll be there as a retired
and
teacher.
gonna be there.
I'll take my little covered dish to contribute, and you know how it is when those little older ladies start cooking.
Yeah.
Oh, the food is phenomenal. So I always enjoy those. See, and a lot of them's my retired teachers that I had when I was a student here. So it's always a fun day to see those.
Yeah, Rachel is also going to have a debate with Will at Northern Kentucky University in October.
Okay.
I think October 2nd, but at the community center there from 6:30 to 6 o'clock to 7:30.
Okay.
So that's going on with her.
Now, are there any other things that you all have planned at this time that you're ready to announce that would be bringing either the federal or the state candidates into Pendleton County?
Well, we intend to do that, to plan something. A farm bureau was saying that they were going to have meet the candidates
Okay.
type of event. I stopped there yesterday to ask them about that. I stopped before, they said they wouldn't go and have it until after the primaries. And I stopped yesterday, and there was just one person there, but she said she'd seen it in their minutes. So I'm gonna check back with them.
Okay.
And see what's going on. If they don't do that, then we'll be planning something.
Okay.
You know, that'll bring in the candidates.
All right. Well, just let us know, and
Okay.
we'll make sure to promote that. So, because the key thing, and the reason why we're doing this, and then some of the other things that we want to do, is just we want to inform the voters and make sure they have as much information as we can provide them, so that they can look at that and make their decision. Let's turn to local races. A lot of different local races going on, a lot of contested local races. Let's start with fiscal court. Craig Peoples, the deputy sheriff for, golly, a long time,
Yeah.
running against, trying to follow his predecessor in Donnie Mays and make that move from sheriff to judge exec
Yeah.
against the incumbent David Fields. Both of them are from two good families, long,
Yeah.
well-respected families in the county. So tell us a little bit about Craig and that race.
Well, Craig would make a good judge executive because he, being sheriff of Pendleton County, he's been an administrator of that office. Plus, he's worked with the fiscal court. So, the thing about like local races, it's not so much party as it is personality and track record and family name, and a lot of times it has nothing to do with that, with the party at all.
Gotcha.
So in a case like David and Craig, you know, it's going to be David has done a good job as judge exec, and Craig's done a good job as sheriff.
And two good guys.
Two good guys,
Yeah.
two great guys.
Yeah.
And they've served their community for a long time. And David was a magistrate before he became judge exec. And Craig's been with the sheriff's department for a long, long time.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned that they'll be working with the fiscal court. Alan Welly is a Republican, is running unopposed in that district, so
Yeah,
he'll be
that's right.
returning back.
Yeah.
But the other three seats all have contested race, and it should be some good, close, possibly close, let's say it that way, races. You have Rick Manier, who I believe is a Democrat,
Yeah.
running against Stephen Foster, not the guy who wrote the play
Not the
in
guy.
My Old Kentucky
Yeah.
Home. If it was, he would be kind of old if it was the same guy.
Yeah.
You have Bobby Fogel,
Yeah.
who's the Democrat, I believe, running against Aaron Gregg.
Yeah.
I think they've ran against each other a couple times and been some close races,
Yeah.
at least once I know of. And then you have Gary Veers, who is not running, chose not to run.
Yeah.
And you have Denny Gosney versus Josh Plummer, another race. Two great guys
Yeah.
from two well-respected families.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be, as to use a basketball term, that could be a barn burner.
Yeah.
That comes down, I mean, that one, it would not shock me if that comes down to a single vote.
Yeah.
Because they're two such great guys.
Could be. Yeah, I've seen races. Jeff Dickon lost a race to Jack Sumter by one vote.
Wow. And you say, my vote don't count, there's an example of, yes, your vote counts.
Yeah.
And you need to get out and vote, and not be 13% again. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Definitely counts.
Yes.
But yeah, it's oftentimes it's family name and track record.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing.
Well, now, you mentioned track record. Rick Manier and Bobby Fogel both have the track record of being on the fiscal court. You have Denny Gosney, who has a track record in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us something about them three.
Well, Rick Manier has been in politics for a long time. He was on city council for years. Was on city council with Mark when Mark was there, and then Rick ran for magistrate, and of course, Mark was also a master for a while. They were both but, and I covered the city council when Mark and Rick were on the council. And, but Rick and Bobby Bobby, who's been a magistrate for a good long time.
Yeah.
And again there with the Fogels are a well-respected family.
Yeah.
And
3 daughters. Of course, Bobby's wife was Becky Fogel,
yeah.
who Becky's Flower Basket is named after,
Mm-hmm.
and moved after the flood. But that business has been around for in excess of 21 years, so has been committed both serving the community as well as being a part of the business community. With that, Holly, of course, after their mom passed away, was the music teacher at Northern,
Yeah.
and had left it to take over the business. And Amber and Jill were the 2 younger ones, which I had a pleasure to coach both of them in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, great family.
Yeah, and the Greggs, of course, are well-respected family.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that should be something. There should be some close races there.
Yeah. What about Dennis Gosney? What we referred to as Goose when he was in high school. He was a couple years behind me. So tell us about Goose Gosney.
Well, I've met him and talked to him. I don't know a lot about him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he seems like a really nice guy and a really responsible guy that'll make a good magistrate.
Yeah.
But,
All right. Well, we also have sheriff going on. Todd Deeney, another. We keep on coming back to the names of Pendleton County. The Deeney family, of course. Debbie ran this office for a long time. You
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
with Debbie for a long, long time.
yeah, like 15 years.
So Todd was the first school resource officer in
Yeah.
Pendleton County.
Yeah.
Served as deputy sheriff. Now looking to move up to that head role as sheriff, with Craig wanting to move on to
Yeah.
judge exec. Running against Eddie Quinn,
Yeah.
who used to be a deputy sheriff, also a graduate of Pendleton County.
Yeah.
Actually, Eddie was one of my first classes that I went through as this, he was a student of mine. Todd had a class too, know them both well,
Yeah.
2 good guys.
Yeah.
We keep on coming back to that same thing, don't we? Isn't that refreshing that we have good people running locally?
Yeah.
But tell us about Todd. He's the Democrat candidate, and tell us about him and why the voters should consider him.
Well, he's been with the sheriff's department for a long, long time. Very responsible, very reliable. Has done a great job as deputy sheriff, and will do a great job as the sheriff. He has a lot of experience.
And that seems like a position, experience in dealing with hard situations.
And the training.
Yes,
He's had all that training. And but of course, Eddie is, being a deputy sheriff. I think there's an independent.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. You're right, I'm sorry. Brian McKinney just filed on August 14th as an independent, and so it'll be a 3-person rate, and I need to apologize for Mr. McCann. I said McCann. Actually also had him in class. I must be getting old. I'm all these people running, and I've had them all in class. But yeah, also a 3rd choice for us.
Yeah. So I don't know so much about him.
Mhm.
What do you know?
I believe he ran as an independent last time. Been involved in, I think, search and water rescue. I don't know a lot, just a little bit, but we, just like with all the candidates, we're going to invite all the candidates to come in, sit down with us, and do what we're doing here, and allow him to introduce himself to the voters of Pendleton County. They can watch this, and they can find out who he is, and we encourage everybody to do that. So I think we have one more contested race for county attorney. Jeff Dean is a Democrat, has been the county attorney for, I don't even know who the previous one was. He's been there for so long. And then you have Miss Sanning that is running against him, that is a Republican candidate.
Yeah, Don Wells was.
That's right, Don,
was
yeah.
county attorney. But, yeah. Well, of course, Jeff is golden. Now,
What do you mean by that?
he's well respected in the community, has done a great job as county attorney, has worked very closely with the fiscal courts, and well respected family, of course.
Yeah.
I know that, who is his opponent, Sandy?
Miss Sanning, yeah. Yeah.
She's a partner with Don Wells now.
I don't,
I think so. I think they're in the law office together.
okay, I didn't realize they had joined together.
And I believe she might have run against Jeff once before. Do you remember something like that?
Might have. Now, is that an office that's a 4-year term too?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been a while ago.
Yeah.
Let's see, I guess we have one race of constable, that's a Republican Democrat. Tell us about the Democrat opponent in that race.
Well, I know that he contacted us about joining the executive committee, and he was on the float. He was on great.
What's his name?
Scott.
Shepherd?
Shepherd.
Scott Shepherd, yeah. Yeah.
So and he seems like a nice guy, you know.
Yeah.
But,
So what about any events that you know coming up? When's your next executive committee meeting that people can come into? And do you generally have some of the candidates stop by and talk? Or
they sometimes do, yeah,
Okay.
on the third Thursday of September.
Yeah.
Whenever that is.
Let's see. I know September 11th is on Tuesday because we're already talking about the 9/11 paper. So that would be the 18th, probably September 20th, maybe?
Yeah.
That might be the third Thursday. So will be the next one, and you might have some candidates
Yeah.
stopping by. Don't have that agenda put together yet.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? Of course, you talked about you're going to stop at Farm Bureau, see
Yeah.
what's going on with BK. Anything else going on? Any other candidates having an event, having a fundraiser? I think Greg Colson had a fundraiser
Yeah, great.
a couple months back or a month back in Pendleton County. Anything else going on locally with the Democrat Party that you want to make sure people know about?
Well, we recently was at the fair.
How'd that go? Did you sign up? Did you get people signed up to vote? New voters, new people registering the party?
No,
Oh, okay.
not a single person.
Really?
registered yet. That race to the polls, I think we got one person
Gotcha.
to sign up. But, I think that they'd tried before, that was once on the committee, out in Wardos. They were there for a day and got like one person.
Wow.
So,
So is it because people are pretty much in Pendleton County? I know when I was in high school, and I've shared this before in stories, Gary Thomas did a wonderful job our senior year. And then I came back as a teacher and he was still teaching. He always did a wonderful job that senior year government class in getting people registered to vote. Is it because of what's been done at the high school that so many people already get registered? Or why do you think that people are just not registering? Or do we have a good number of people registered?
yeah. I want to say, yeah, there's like 14,000 people in the county, maybe about 10,000, 11,000 registered, something like that.
Well, and the
Something like that.
school district's about 2,000 students.
Mhm.
So let's say it's 10,000, that gets you to 12, and then you got kids underneath the age of 5. So it's probably a pretty high percentage that are registered, yeah.
Of course, not all those people are voting.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very true.
But yeah, they're registered, and you look at those rolls or the history, and they've not been voting. They've not voted in.
Well, what do you think about that? I know Ohio just recently passed something that got a constitutional court challenge about if a person hadn't voted for like 10 years or whatever, I don't know what the time period was, should there be a time period that if you're not voting, you're removed off of it and then you have to re-register, or do we just keep those people on there all the time? What do you think about
I
that?
think they're being kept on there. I don't think
Okay.
there's like, they're just not removed. They could have not voted in 10 years. And must have. At one time, when early on, I had failed to vote in an election, they took me off the rolls. I'm trying to think of who was it, Nixon, when he ran against McGovern.
Mhm.
I stood out in the rain for a couple hours and got in there and they'd taken me off.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It didn't matter because I think McGovern won Massachusetts. He didn't even win his own state.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, Watergate came after that. And then, yeah, it was a landslide for Nixon. So.
I know, it's funny, I went in to vote one time and didn't know the lady that was registering. She asked me for an ID, and I pointed at my daughter who was running another poll and said, will that work? That's my daughter. Can she testify that I'm Everett Key Smith? And she's like, oh, you know Kristen? I'm like, yeah, it's my daughter. So, but it was funny that, you know, here's a small town, and they asked me for my ID and proved I was voting, which pleased me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to say something
Mhm.
about Mark and who is the opponent? I'm blocking.
Greg.
Greg.
Yeah.
No. Mark and Will.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one. Yeah, they're both good guys.
Mhm.
You know, I'll vouch for him. You know, I've known Mark since he was preschooler. He's a good guy, and Will's a good guy. You know, they just happen to have the misfortune of, you know, falling in with bad company. They became Republicans, you know. So we got to defeat them, the Republicans.
I shared with them earlier in a text when the standards board came out this, I think it was earlier this week, that they were dropping the requirement for teachers to have to get their master's.
Oh, yeah.
You can still go get it.
Yeah.
You still get the pay increase. That would be a local district decision, but you're not required to do it anymore.
Mhm.
And the comment, you know, Bevan had said about the person drowning, you knock them in the head, alluding to teachers are like a person in drowning, you have to knock them in the head. And I texted him, I said, man, they make it hard on you. Bevan makes it hard on them. He tweets, he opens his mouth and says something so dumb, and it just makes it hard on him. Same way with Trump. He makes it hard on Republicans with things he says.
Yeah. No.
The people just want to run to the Democrats because of the stupid comments coming out of